Hi, my name is Tarikak, and this is my life. Woo-hoo, woo, woo. Hi, I am an input specialist at a mortgage modification law firm in Salt Lake City, and that is the most boringest thing that you will know about my life. I am older than Britney Spears and younger than a Spice Girl. I was born during the Carter administration in Cambodia soon after the war broke out. I was born in a grass hut in a communist work camp, and my mother gave birth to me on her feet. I was delivered by a midwife whose compensation for delivering me into this world was a blanket, a sarong, a live chicken, and 2 bags of rice. So now I'm here today. I lived in the work camp until my parents escaped from the communists when I was 6 months old, and we went to a refugee camp in Thailand by the border of Cambodia, and we lived there for about a year and a half until a church in Rochester, New York, sponsored for my family to come over and live there. I grew up in Rochester, went to elementary school, middle school, high school, college there, and I am very artistic. So I would like to think I spent most of my school life being told that I was the artistic one, or I was the most artistic person in my school. So, just going along with that, I decided to go to school for art. I got a scholarship to go to Moore College of Art and Design in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania after I graduated, but my parents wouldn't let me go because they didn't want me to see, or they didn't want me to go out of state. So instead, I just went to a community college in my town, and I dropped out 3 times before I finally earned my 2-year degree 7 years after I I started college. I guess it was kind of my rebellious stage. I was kicked out of my parents' house when I was 19 because I got a tongue ring and I refused to take it out. Principals, spent $50 for the thing. But I spent most of my working life working in restaurants, waited tables, bussed, hosted. I kind of prep cook for a little bit, and it was enough to make a living, but it was very, very unfulfilling. I also worked in a few different nightclubs, a few bars, and I was kind of sick of waiting tables and making a living sucking up to people and trying to get tips out of them. So I decided to further my college education by moving out to Florida and pursuing a bachelor's degree in digital art and design. I dabbled a little bit with computer animation. I also had a few jobs acting and modeling. I did some go-go dancing for a few bands, and it was fun. I love being on the stage and hamming things up and being the center of attention, but it didn't quite pay the bills. I was even in a mildly successful independent movie called Fury, and that went around to a few festivals, won a few awards. I was in a print campaign or print ad campaign for some Kodak product that I don't even remember. But I didn't really find too much work in that, and I didn't really pursue it that often. And waiting tables was just my fallback thing because that's what made good money. So, I went to college. And while I was there, I met my future fiance at a zombie survival night. I heard about the zombie survival night through my friends who were all excited to attend. And at first I thought it was pretty stupid because they were paying $20 a pop to run around in this warehouse with laser guns shooting actors dressed as zombies. That was the dumbest thing ever. But then I saw an ad on MySpace that they needed actors to portray those zombies. I was like, oh, me, I want to do it. So I did it. Showed up. They put zombie makeup on me, and I ran around this warehouse dressed as a zombie, chasing after people who had huge-ass laser guns, and they were shooting at me, and I was pretending to die. It's kind of fun. There was a lot of people who signed up to do it, so they were doing it in 10-minute intervals, like, 10 minutes of one group going in and shooting zombies, and then 5-minute break, and then another 10 minutes of a different group going in and shooting zombies. And it got tiring after a while. So during one of the 10-minute intervals, I decided to be lazy and just lie down in a crate and pretend that I was already taken down. It's a cheap shot, but sometimes you can't help but choose the easy route. So I decided to lay prostrate over these crates, pretend to be dead, and while the next sequence of people were moving in, there's this one person who decided to come over and check out what was going on. Me being put down and lying over these crates. So this person, a very large person, who had a very large sniper rifle over his shoulder, decided to come up to me. He leaned down and he smelled me and he goes, "Man, these things reek." And that was Josh, the future love of my life. Well, that was how we met, and we became friends. We were friends for several years. But, I was in college, and this was Florida. This wasn't where I intended to stay. So after I finished college, I graduated, earned my bachelor's degree, and went back home to Rochester, New York. Josh and I decided to keep in contact as well as several of my other friends that I met in college. But when I moved back home, I moved back in with my parents, and I could not find a job in any sort of graphic design field, which is what I went to school for, which is why I am going to be in debt for probably most of the rest of my life. But the only job that I could find was waiting tables, so I took it. It was in a sushi restaurant, and I love sushi, so hey, why not? The only problem was when I moved back in with my parents, they decided that they didn't want to live in this house that they owned for the last 20 years. So they decided to sell it. My dad wanted to start his life over and become a trucker. So he sold his house, moved out to California, and bought a truck. And now he's driving a truck for a living. And since, he was basically a free place for me to stay, I decided to move with my parents to California. California sucks. The economy is horrible there. The state is bankrupt. I didn't know that when I was moving there. Before I moved there, I looked at jobs, add jobs for anything in the creative field, and there seemed to be a ton of it. When I moved out to California and started applying for all those jobs, I found out that lots of those jobs just turned out to be scams. Craigslist. So I couldn't find a job in the creative field, and I couldn't even find a job waiting tables because apparently a lot of the waiters out there make killer money. So you need to know somebody before you got a job in a restaurant. The only job I could find was door-to-door sales. Did that for about a month. At first, I was doing really well at it, and later I realized how completely sucky it was. We were living in Fresno, and I believe Fresno has an unemployment rate of 19% at the time. So I decided that maybe Fresno was not for me. I had an aunt who lived in Orange County with her husband and her two daughters. So I asked her if I could stay at her house and look for a job in Los Angeles. And she had a talk with her husband, and they allowed me to stay. So, I moved out to Orange County for a little bit, looked for a job like every day, and went out into these interviews. And Los Angeles is not a place to live if you have a weak stomach. Um, I was looking for jobs mostly on Craigslist. I joined like Monster and some other job searching websites, Career Builder, and not a lot of that helped. But I did run into some friends that lived there, and so after I would apply for these jobs and go out for interviews and whatnot, I would go out and visit my friends. When sometimes I would, spend the night at their house and just stay away for days. And apparently, my aunt's husband did not care for that at all. And I wasn't finding a job fast enough, so he decided to kick me out of his house, which is how I became homeless for the first and only time in my life. Luckily, my friends are wonderful people and they gave me a place to stay. They put a roof over my head. I had a nice, comfortable couch to lie on. Um, and I reassessed my life, I reassessed my choices, and I decided that I wanted to move back home to New York. So I went back to Rochester, found another job waiting tables. In fact, I think I was working at like 2 or 3 different restaurants waiting tables when I moved back home. And during this entire time, Josh and I were still talking, and we decided that we wanted to have a relationship. So the first few months of our relationship was long distance, and we discovered the hard way that long distance is the wrong distance. So I decided to move to Florida to be with him, and I got another job waiting tables. But while I was doing that, Josh and I were both offered jobs in Salt Lake City at a law firm. So this is why I am in Salt Lake City right now. And so we're out here, and most of our life is devoted to our 9 to 5 job, which we're grateful for, but it's not our passion. Our passion lies in the realm of geekiness. We're both cosplayers. We like dressing up in costume and playing around in it, playing the characters. Josh has more costumes than he does have regular clothes, which is awesome. I wish I could say that the same about myself, but unfortunately, I don't own a lot of the costumes that I've had in the past. I've either sold them or given them away, so now I'm in the process of making more costumes. Um, and we've made a few friends that have the same interests in us or have a piquing interest in what we love, and met some nice people out here. Our job is keeping us afloat financially, but we both hope to do something that we really love. Um, I'm very creative. Josh is very creative. We hope to, get on our feet one day and maybe buy a house, have some kids. We've already picked out the names of our kids. All of our sons will be named after dinosaurs, and our girls are going to be named after sharks. And I just hope to one day create this horribly nerdy, wonderful family and to live happily ever after.